Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Well, recently an old acquaintance of mine said something to me that kind of caught my attention. He's seen some of the videos I produce in the podcast, and he said to me, he said, you know what? He said, you're a modern day Andy Rooney. And I got to thinking about that. Andy Rooney. My gosh, I'd forgotten about that. If you remember the old days back in the 1980s when 60 Minutes was a good show. I used to watch it regularly. It wasn't so much for the features they did or the things they're talking about. I waited till the end of the show so I could see what Andy Rooney, the curmudgeon, would say about things. His stuff was fantastic. Yes, he was irascible. Yes, he said some wild things. But he talked about things that, well, the average person was interested in. Because Andy was an old-time writer. He was the old days. He's one of those greatest American generation people. I'm more of the baby boomer people, but then again, I agree with some of the things that Andy said, and yes, I'm also a trained journalist myself. I went to J school in the 60s, so I'm a writer just like he was. But here's the deal. Andy talks about a lot of different things, and he covers things that you wouldn't think most people would cover. And one of the things he was talking about was daylight saving time. And I tell you what, it got my attention. I am one of those people that thinks that we in America should stay on standard time. I don't like daylight saving time. Never have. And the reason is I am a morning person. I get up 5:30 every morning. I want to see the sun coming up. I want to be out there to look at the sun and start off my day because I do my best work in the morning. I'm not a nighttime person. I may have daughters who are nighttime people, maybe even my wife, but I am not a nighttime person. I'm a morning person. And having daylight saving time messes up everything in my life. And I'll tell you what else it does. It messes up your circadian rhythm. That's right. You get what is called circadian misalignment. And changing it around every 6 months messes things up in your brain. It takes a while. If you go flying someplace, you get time changes and everything changes. That's why you get it's called jet lag. People get this jet lag thing. Things are not right. Well, Andy Rooney was against daylight saving time. And I tend to agree with him. Now, we got two states in America that do not follow daylight saving time. One is Arizona, the other is Hawaii. They don't. But right now, Congress is discussing what to do and how to do it. Some people say, let's make it permanent daylight saving time. No. I don't like it being dark in the morning when I get up, pretty much year-round. I want the sun up. I want to be able to get up with the birds and the bees. And frankly, animals don't give a darn about daylight saving time. It's what their body tells them or what the sun tells them, the circadian rhythm, folks. You don't want to have your circadian rhythm messed up, and I think daylight saving time contributes to that. Now, that's just my opinion. So am I another Andy Rooney? I don't know about that. Am I old? Yeah, I am. Am I a curmudgeon? It depends on who you ask. But do I have opinions? You better believe it. And that's what I do here. Right now, I'm one of those people saying no daylight saving time. That's just my opinion, and I am sticking to it. Well, let me bring you up to speed about what's going on in the city of New York, especially involving two particular cases that may interest you. One has to do with a gentleman by the name of Daniel Penny. Now, Mr. Penny is a former United States Marine. You can never say former. He is a Marine. He was studying architecture in New York City, and he happened to be on a subway. And when you're on the subway, it can get a little scary there. You're underground, a lot of people. Well, this gentleman gets on board the subway. His name is Jordan Neely. He's got a rap sheet that's a week long. He's got multiple offenses. He's a drug addict, a schizophrenic. He gets on there, tears off his coat, and says, I'm going to kill somebody. I don't really care. Now, there's a lot of people on the subway that get scared. There's a black woman and her child. She's frightened to death. And Mr. Penny goes, no, I can't let this happen, grabs the man, takes him down, pulls him to the floor, and another black gentleman assist Mr. Penny in holding this gentleman down who refuses to quit fighting. Well, in the fracas that goes along, Mr. Penny was holding on to Mr. Jordan Neely, and ultimately Mr. Neely died. Well, the problem is the guy's a drug addict, and he's on whatever he's on, but the guy dies. Well, eventually the DA in New York, Alvin Bragg, decides to bring homicide charges, manslaughter charges, if you will, against Mr. Penny. Trial goes on a long time. One charge, the manslaughter charge, judge throws it out because it's a hung jury. Second charge, they deliberate 3 hours and find him not guilty. That's all well and good, and now he's a free man. Great. Maybe he'll get a congressional medal. But now the NAACP has put out a new paper that says it's not right, it's not fair, because there's a different justice system for blacks as compared to whites in America. And Mr. Penny should have been convicted. Well, excuse me, what about that black gentleman that was helped holding him down? What about the black woman and her kid who were afraid they were going to be killed? That was not mentioned at all in the edict that came out of the NAACP, and frankly, that's wrong. And they know better. I don't know why they're doing that, but all they're doing is infuriating people and creating a bad situation that could get worse. And I don't want to see it get worse. That's one story I'm looking at. Second story has to do with Luigi Magione, 26, 27-year-old. He's an Ivy League graduate, University of Pennsylvania, multiple engineering degrees. This is a rich kid. I mean, when he went through grade school, his parents were dropping $40,000 a year for this kid to be in grade school and high school. Sent him to college. Family is extremely wealthy. They own country clubs, assisted living facilities, radio stations, and I'm sure he's going to have good representation. But here he is. He goes out and pulls out a gun and chases down the head of United Healthcare, shoots him in the back, and kills him. Why? Well, apparently he had some sort of situation with back surgery he had, a pinched nerve, and for whatever reason, he's going to go after the gentleman from the healthcare firm. Is that going to solve anything? Sadly, no. But now you've got college professors going on to their classes and saying that Mr. Magione is a hero. What? This is where we are in America. This is idiocy at the extreme. College professors calling this guy a hero, and Daniel Penny having to go through a suit, being charged, put in the slammer for years for doing a good deed. I hope he gets a medal. He deserves it. Well, now you know what's going on in America, folks. Unfortunately, you've got groups riling people up that shouldn't be doing that. It's wrong. And you got folks out there that have a complete disagreement with the insurance companies, and then you have instructors, people that are professors, supposed to be leaders at colleges, saying this guy is a hero for going out and killing people. This is what we're dealing with, and folks, it's wrong. I hope cooler heads prevail in this world, because we don't need this kind of situation happening regardless. It's a misuse of the legal system in many, many ways. And unfortunately, now you have people who have a problem that says, well, we don't like the company, we're going to kill the people running it. It's wrong in every manner. I'm just saying that maybe, just maybe, America needs to understand what's going on and put a stop to it right now. Well, on December 18th, the state of Indiana is going to do something they haven't done in, 15 years? That's put somebody to death under the rules and regulations that operates under the state of Indiana. Now, I want to tell you up front, I am a person who is not objecting, per se, to the death penalty. I believe it gets litigated big time, and if it's ever carried out, it's carried out. But it costs a lot of money, takes a great deal of time, effort, and just a lot of gnashing of teeth, if you will, before someone is executed. There are people in this country that believe in execution of someone who does something wrong, and I happen to fall into that area. But there are people that are against the execution, saying it's inhuman, it's not correct, man is not supposed to do that. And they stand by that. And I have no real problem with that doing that. So there's arguments on both sides. Now, Joseph Cochran is the thing we're talking about right now. Back in 1997, I believe it was, he thought that his brother and his brother's friends and what have you were talking about him. And he got a gun and came downstairs and shot all 4 of them, killed 4 people. Took the gun, set it down, went and sat on the front porch of his house and told the neighbors, hey, go call the police. Anybody who does that, I don't know about you, but something ain't right with that person. That's just my opinion. Something ain't right. So the litigation has been going on since all of this happened. And it's been through every court system you can think of, and it's finally gone to the Supreme Court of the state of Indiana, and by a 3-2 vote, they said, no, we're not going to get involved. It stands. Attorney General of the state of Indiana says, nope, the defense hasn't proved he's mentally incompetent. And Joseph Corcoran has signed a document saying, hey, I'm ready to die. I committed this heinous crime. Well, I don't know. I'm a little bit torn on this one because I think this guy is not right. Sorry, that's just the way I think. Now, Bob Morris, state representative here in Indiana, is filed documentation and requesting the governor to stay this execution, to do it the last thing that he does as the governor of Indiana because he's been 2-termed out, leaving the office in January when a new person comes in. Now, should the governor take that option? Well, to be honest with you, it's one of those times I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, the governor should really consider this. And take a look at Joseph Corcoran. I'm telling you, folks, I've watched this thing the entire time, and I keep saying there's something wrong with this guy. I mean, if you're thinking someone's talking about you, so you're going to take a gun and go down and kill everybody in the room, man, something ain't right with you at that point. That's just my opinion. Now, others will argue, no, hey, he committed a heinous crime. He's been through all the court proceedings, and he's still going to die. Well, all right, fine. Like I said, I am a pro-execution person. But in this case, I do think that this gentleman, well, I don't think he's got all the screws in the proper place, folks. Sorry, I don't. So, should he be given a stay of execution by the governor? This is one of those times I would think, yes, I think he should. Let's hope that he pays attention to Bob Morris's letter, because if he does, maybe something like this can be stopped, not completely all the time, but this time, maybe it should be.
Well, beginning this Friday, something is going to start that's never happened in college football. It's going to be a big-time college football playoffs with not just 4 teams like they used to do. It's going to be with 12 teams. That's right, you're going to have yourself 4 teams that are top 4 seeds, like in the basketball season. You get the top 4 seeds, and then everybody else plays against each other for a chance to go after those top 4 seeds in hopes of ending up the college football playoff championship that'll be held in probably late January. Sometime before the Super Bowl would be my best guess because of the number of games that got to be played. The reason I'm bringing all this up is because a rather unusual game is happening this Friday. Indiana University, with 11-1 record, is playing the Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame, for crying out loud. IU and Notre Dame, a classic game here in the state of Indiana. A lot of eyes are going to be watching that game because Notre Dame obviously is a nationwide team. Heck, I remember as a teenager worked in a grocery store in El Paso, Texas, and our assistant manager had a radio on in the store listening to Notre Dame football. And this was in the 1960s, for crying out loud. Notre Dame was famous, and IU is venturing up to South Bend to play them. 8 o'clock game, I believe it is. So it's going to be in the evening, and then they have a chance. Whoever wins that one plays Georgia, which is going to be a tough game too. But the reason they're talking about this, they're saying, well, this is Rooney against Hoosiers. And I'm thinking to myself, Rooney against Hoosiers. All right, I got the Rooney part. I'll give you that. I think Rooney is probably one of my favorite sports movies of all time. But Hoosiers, yes, Indiana's a basketball state, But I don't want to think about basketball involving this particular matchup, because obviously basketball is basketball. Leave that to basketball. However, I want to use a movie that a lot of people aren't thinking about. It was called Breaking Away. Now, many of you don't remember that movie, but I do. It has to do with the annual bike race, the Little 500 it was called, down in Bloomington, Indiana. I was able to attend that in 1977. First time I've ever seen it, and it was like nothing I have ever witnessed. We were sitting in turn one, watching all the stuff going on. These kids, these fraternity kids, racing each other on bicycles, handing off the bike to the next person. And, you know, the movie itself dealt with what group they called the Cutters. These were kids who worked in the quarries, cutting the stone out, Indiana limestone. And how they entered against the big IU frat guys and all that kind of stuff going on, and ultimately how they were successful. And so they're showing the underdogs. And this is why I like the idea of using the breaking away as the underdogs, because right now, Indiana is definitely the underdogs to Notre Dame. How the game's going to turn out, I do not know. But I can tell you this, a lot of eyes in the United States of America on Saturday or Friday night are going to be watching ABC to see the Indiana Hoosiers 11-1 taking on Notre Dame. And don't forget, Notre Dame's got one blemish, Northern Illinois. And Indiana is going to try to exploit that to the best possible advantage they can in their hopes of beating the Fighting Irish in the big game coming up on Friday. It's Rooney versus Breaking Away, in my opinion. My thoughts on it, and now you know where my heart lies.
Well, today is December 7th, 2024. 83 years ago today, the Japanese attacked the United States of America at Pearl Harbor at Hawaii. Went down Battleship Row and sunk a whole bunch of our battleships. Well, today I was at a ceremony in the Memorial Coliseum's Great Hall. Never been in there before, but it's designed and it was intended for veterans. They had a special ceremony today, and a lot of folks were there for this ceremony. And one of the things they were doing was honoring a Pearl Harbor survivor of the December 7th attack. And I happen to know that Pearl Harbor survivor quite well because, well, he was sort of a member of my family. Well, not a blood member, but over the years, he became a member of our family. His name was Jack Garrett. Jack was 17 when he enlisted into the Navy. Happened to be at Pearl Harbor on the USS St. Louis when the Japan attacked. Now, they were aiming for battleships. Jack was on a cruiser, and they were able to get out of Pearl Harbor and get to safety. But Jack lived to the ripe old age of 104 when he passed away a couple of months ago. Had a big ceremony honoring him today, and I was asked to speak at that ceremony and talk about my history and talk about Jack, what he did. He was one of those people that came from the greatest generation. And in my family, he was Grandpa Jack to my children. And even today, even though they're grown and gone, they still refer to him as Grandpa Jack. It was something pretty special doing that kind of presentation. I was asked to speak. I was the only speaker on the entire program. And I got up there and reminisced about all the things that I remember about Jack. But I talked about him in World War II because back in the days when I was on WOWO radio, a couple of my most important guests I ever had, one of them was Jack. Jack Garrett appeared on my show and we talked about Pearl Harbor, his experience, what happened. He was one of my guests, so he was the start of World War II. But then ultimately I had another guest on, and he was the one who brought World War II to the end. General Paul Tibbets. That's right. Paul Tibbets, the Enola Gay, dropping the atomic bomb. Both of those interviews I had on my show. And those are the two most memorable ones that I can think of in all the years that I served on WOWO. But Jack was unique and he was different. He was a class act 100% around. Serving his country and being the best he could be. He got married, had 3 kids of his own, but ultimately his wife passed, and he met my wife's mother, and they became a couple. What's unique about Jack was he was incredible. He was, a lot of ways, the father I never had, because my father was killed when I was 5 years old in a car accident. So a lot of memories going on here. And it was special for me to recount those in front of all those people at the Great Hall at the Coliseum. And still don't remember everything I said, but they gave me 15 minutes, and I guess I used the entire portion. But on this day, December 7th, 2024, honoring a hero in my eyes from 1941, 83 years later, Jack Garrett. Superb human being, and a person my kids call Grandpa Jack. Just saying.
There has been a great deal of talk about Joe Biden giving a pardon to his son Hunter. And there's been a lot of discussion about that, saying, well, gee whiz, if it's your son, you would do that too. Father protecting his son. All right, I get that. But a pardon that lasts from 2014 to 2024, a 10-year pardon? That's unprecedented in American history. Normally, you give a pardon, it's for one thing. They did one thing at one time. That's what you pardon them for. But to give someone a blanket pardon that lasts for 10 years is unheard of. But there's more coming. Well, apparently, according to Jim Comer, who is the head of the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, they did an investigation not just into Hunter Biden, but they also did into the Biden family. Even brought in Jim Biden, Joe's brother, questioned him, and Representative Connors said he lied on the stand. He just flat out lied, so did Hunter. Well, what happened was, according to Mr. Comer, he said they sent all the files over to the Justice Department for prosecution, because obviously Congress can't indict anybody. That can only be done by the Justice Department. The Justice Department has let it die. Now, that tells you just how corrupt, can you use that term, that things are over the Justice Department. Merrick Garland, they had the goods, said, here's all the stuff you can indict. Nothing. And now the word is that Joe Biden may, in fact, issue a pardon for his brother. I don't know about you, but innocent people don't need pardons, right? If you're innocent, you haven't done anything wrong, you don't need a pardon. So why would he want to pardon his brother? He's not part of government. Why would he want to pardon him? Well, maybe his brother could be charged with something and might say, hey, I'm going to give up somebody else to save my own skin. And who could that somebody else be? Just saying. There's the problem, folks. There's where we are. We have a whole situation where one family has been selling influence nationwide, worldwide. There's 10 Biden family members that are involved with this thing, and nobody is being charged with anything. And now we're finding out we may in fact see a pardon for Joe's brother. Well, there's also talk of pardoning Liz Cheney. Really? Okay. And Adam Schiff? Didn't Adam Schiff say such things as, I have personal knowledge, I know everything the president has been doing, Trump has been doing everything wrong, and I have personal knowledge? Well, Adam Schiff being pardoned for that? Adam Schiff said he knew. Did he? Or is he saying now, hey, try it? See, because one of the things you have to understand, people in Congress feel they have immunity from anything they say to anybody because it's speech and debate clause in the Constitution. So anything they say on the floor of Congress is fair game, and they can't be charged with it. If that's the case, then why do they want to get Joe to give him a pardon? Innocent people don't need pardons. Just bringing this up for your consideration. How is this going to end? I don't know. But if you see more pardons coming down, especially more to people in the Biden family, that's telling you something you need to know. Corruption runs deep, and apparently very deep in this administration.
So, how many of you like to shop at Costco? I realize there's Sam's Club and there's Costco. Well, now, Costco is going to be doing something starting in January that may or may not affect you. Because here's what's going to happen in January at your friendly Costco. Costco has decided they're going to stop selling books. You heard me right. Costco in January, at the vast majority of their stores, they're going to leave a few with books, but they are going to stop selling books. They said it's a pain in the butt to stock books. Now you're going, wait a minute. They stock everything else. What do you mean they can't stock books? Well, you can't bring in books on a forklift. You got to do them by hand. You got to take them out of the boxes, got to set them on the shelf, you got to put this book with this thing, this book with this thing, and it's too labor intensive according to the management of Costco. They said, we're going to stop selling books in January. It's just a giant pain, takes too much time, it's too labor intensive, and besides that, Costco said, behind the curtain, of course, and we're getting our butt kicked by Amazon. Yeah. People are ordering books online from Amazon. They're not going to buy them at Costco because they can't guarantee the book that they're looking for. They're going to find it at Costco. Yeah, you may find a book and say, oh, well, maybe I'll read that one instead of this book that I saw online or I could get in advance. So that's what's happened, folks. So if you're a fan of buying your books at Costco, get ready because come January, books are out at Costco. It's only stuff they can bring in on forklifts, and books ain't one of the things they can do that with. So, is that going to leave room for something else in Costco? Yeah, it probably could. Personally, I'm hoping they enlarge their electronics department, but that's just me, because I happen to like toys. But that's kind of what I know. So if you're wondering what happened or what's going on with those, with Costco, yes, sure, you got to show your card now, and they check it out against the photo ID that you have. It's a pain in the butt for you to get into Costco. Like you used to borrow someone else's card and get whatever you want, right? And they kind of cut that one back. But now they're going to quit selling those books that you see. And to be honest with you, when I've gone to Costco and I go across their book department, yeah, I'll browse. But more often than not, I don't really find anything I'm interested in reading. Because when I want to read something that I can get now, not waiting or not wandering over to Costco with 10, 20,000 of my best friends going in there and rummaging around. Ain't going to happen. Just telling you the latest information to make your world ever so much easier. Costco will stop selling books in January. And now you know. Well, did you ever wonder how the U.S. economy got into the position that it did? And how we're actually taking stuff in from other countries more than we're giving to the other countries? Well, I had to do a little lookup on this, and here's some things I discovered. Back in 1990, which is, 30 plus years ago, the number one country that we were importing from was Japan. And annual thing, the amount of money was $91 billion. Canada was second with 89, and Mexico was third with 28. That was 1990. And then 10 years later, in 2000, Canada was now number one, and their exporting into the U.S. was $225 billion, as compared to 10 years earlier to 89. Now it's up to 225. They were number one. Japan dropped down to number two with $146 billion, and Mexico was $133 billion for third place in the year 2000. All right, another 10 years. 2010, the number one exporter to the United States was China. That's right. And the amount they went from $337 billion in 2010. It came out of nowhere. They weren't even listed back in 2090. Yet in 2010, $337 billion first place. Number two was Canada, $257 billion, and Mexico was $208. Well, now comes 2020. That's just what, 4 years ago? 2020, China at $445 billion worth of exports into America. Mexico was number two at $340 billion, and Canada was now third place at $295 billion. So that's 4 years ago. Now I have the data from 3 years ago, so this is where I'm working from right now. Now these are the countries who are exporting into the United States, which tells you we ain't putting much stuff outside the United States. We're getting everything from outside of America. There's a problem. So, in 2023, guess who was the number one country exporting into the United States? Was it China? No, it wasn't. Was it Canada? Japan? In 2023, the number one country exporting into the United States was Mexico. That's right, Mexico went up to $475 billion. China had that $427 billion. And Canada, $421 billion. Now, what's that tell you? That tell you we're not making stuff in the United States and sending it out. We're taking everything in. We don't have the manufacturing like we used to. And we're sending stuff to other countries around the world. Well, we're not doing that. We're getting everything sent to us. So, when you realize last year Mexico was the number one exporter into the United States as compared to China, as compared to Canada, Mexico's the main player. That's why all the concerns we have about our economy is dealing with Mexico, because now you understand where we get most of our stuff imported from. Not from China, folks. Not like we used to say, well, it comes from China. No, it doesn't. Everything now we get from the country of Mexico. That might explain to you why we've got some issues of Mexico, and their new president is Sheinbaum. Ms. Sheinbaum is the president of Mexico. Isn't that interesting to see how we've got to deal with her? And now we know Mexico is the number one importer into the United States. Something I'll bet you didn't know up to now, but now you do. Everybody has probably heard about the death of the United Healthcare CEO, but have you heard about the writings of one Taylor Lorenz? Well, Ms. Taylor Lorenz used to work at the Washington Post. Before that, she worked at the New York Times. And she has gone out and she has written a piece that essentially says, now you wonder why people want these other insurance company heads dead. She wrote on several social media posts, is what she did, that she was celebrating the fact the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was murdered. And she's suggesting that other executives should also be targeted. I'm not kidding you. This is what this woman did. Now, Thompson was also shot and killed at close range, as we said, in Midtown Manhattan. And she said the following. She said, and people wonder why we want these executives dead. Now, she wrote this just an hour after the shooting. And she was talking about, this needs to be done because Blue Cross and Blue Shield no longer cover anesthesia for full-length in some surgeries. And she was upset about that. So she's reposting a whole bunch of posts that other people put on Blue Sky. Now, if you don't know what Blue Sky is, allow me to fill you in. When X used to be, or Twitter used to be their cause and play, if you will, when that was purchased by, Elon Musk, all the progressives went over to a new website, a new place where they can vent their frustrations on a site called Blue Sky. Now, that's where all the left goes now. So, obviously, that's where she was, pontificating about what's going on involving the murder of this CEO. And she forwarded and passed along other people's posts, saying, I agree with this. This is what people are saying, and frankly, this is how I feel and how everybody else feels. She said, one user wrote, hypothetically, it would be considered an actionable threat to start emailing other insurance CEOs a simple, quote, you're next. Completely unrelated to current events, by the way. Well, she's defending these posts, claiming that, it's justified hatred because CEOs, because of the amount of death and suffering they've caused at their responsibility because they're just trying to make money. And here's what she wrote. Quote, people are very justified hatred toward insurance company CEOs because these executives are responsible for the unfathomable amount of death and suffering. As someone against death and suffering, I think it's a good call to call out this broken system and the people in power who enable it. Now, she wrote that. This is from Lorenz. She used to be at the New York Times, then went to the Washington Post, and now has left the Washington Post, and I'm not sure where she's writing stuff now. This woman is about as far to the left she's going to fall off the planet if she's not careful. This is what we're dealing with, folks. And these are writers. Now, writers, if that's what they feel, that's what they feel, and they can espouse that. It's a free country. It's called the First Amendment. We have every right to free speech. But when you start saying this kind of stuff, you're kind of influencing other people to start thinking the same thing because they think along your lines. So let's just, let's kill the other CEOs. It's okay because they're all in it for the money themselves. A difficult thing to do, folks, but now you know what some people in the media are doing and saying about the death of another individual. That's where America stands. Is that right? Well, it's up to you to decide, but it is unfortunate. Well, taxpayers, here's a little thing for you. Do you realize how much of your taxpayer money has been spent on illegal immigration into the United States? Well, let me give a couple of small examples. This comes from the New York Post, who just released this. I'm going to give you New York City. There in New York City, the city has leased a hotel. So migrants who are there illegally can stay in that hotel and be paid for by the taxpayers of New York. You know how much money that was? Turns out it's $220 million. But where is that money going? Who's the owner of the hotel? The country of Pakistan owns the hotel. Yes, it's owned by the government of Pakistan, and so U.S. dollars are going to the government of Pakistan to pay for rental space at a hotel. Yep, just released. Yep, and I'll tell you what, in the city of New York, they're spending millions and millions of dollars every month on hotels, and there's one hotel in particular where they rented it out for $1.7 million of taxpayer money, but nobody's occupying it in New York City. And speaking of New York, while we're at it, how about this? In New York City, there's 69,000. 69,000. That's with the big thousand, you know, the three zeros behind it. Convicted criminals walking the streets of New York City every day. I'm just using New York, because right now we have numbers on that. But they know there's city, 11 million people in New York? They're just walking among us. You know, people are afraid to walk down the streets in New York. They're afraid to go anywhere in New York because these convicted criminals, who come from Venezuela, by the way, because they were dumped out of the Venezuelan prisons. And the president of Venezuela says, hey, let's send them to the United States. Well, that's what happened. So we got 69,000 walking the streets of Venezuela. We've got hundreds of thousands in the United States, criminals. And that doesn't even count the gotaways that got away at the border. We don't even know who they are or where they are. Why are they doing all of this? Why have we opened up our borders to let everybody who comes in? Well, I'll tell you what, think about it. The U.S. Census is done every 10 years. And they count not U.S. citizens, they count bodies. That's what it says in the Constitution. You count the number of people. Well, if you have, say, 10 million new people coming in who are illegals, well, that means you're going to have 10 million more people that have to be represented in the United States according to the Constitution. So you could end up with about 12 to 15 new congressional districts in the United States, and the Democrats figure, oh, those are going to all be Democrats. They're going to vote for us because we're giving them free food, we're giving them free MasterCard, Visa cards, whatever. We're giving them free health care, we're giving them free Social Security. They're going to vote for us. So if you end up with 12 to 15 new House members, they're going to control the House forever. And they know it. They're playing a long game, and you're being played. Ask yourself why. Well, that's what's going on. Right now in America, we've spent probably close to $200 billion on illegals coming into this country. Why? Ask yourself that question. Now, if you can answer it, you're probably better than a lot of other people, but figure it out. Why have new people? Because the census is coming up, and new bodies mean new representatives, and new representatives mean control, and that's what one party wants. Well, the football season is mostly over for the college teams, except for the bowl games and a few extra games coming up. But right now we're back into basketball season. And basketball season means both college and the NBA. But here's something maybe you haven't thought about. A young lady by the name of Caitlin Clark, you probably know the name, she has drawn more viewers than 90% of the NBA teams in her rookie season. You heard me right. More than 90% of the NBA teams, she outdrew them in her rookie season. Tell you what, you take a look at the NBA, and you take a look at what she's doing. Well, the Indiana Fever's games are averaging 1.59 million viewers. Hell, that outdoes the NBA teams when you think about it. And that doesn't even count the NBA broadcast where Clark actually dominates. The Fever won 18 games over 2 seasons. That's all they did, 2 seasons. Yet they are Indiana's premier basketball attraction. Beyond Purdue, beyond Indiana, beyond the Pacers. I mean, she's popular. Now, she is outdrawing 26 of the NBA's 30 teams. Now, that doesn't include, obviously, like the Lakers, the Warriors, Celtics, the Knicks. Understand that, but big markets. Now, the NBA's deal lacks way, way behind what the NBA has. So the women, they don't have the deal the men have until now. That may be changing. And she's drawing more viewers than the NBA stars like Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic. She's something to be reckoned with, folks. And even after she got put down by the Connecticut Sun in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. She's the most popular thing right now in the WNBA, and she is drawing big time. So anyway, here's the deal. The WNBA is now entering a new era, new times. And her numbers on viewership could lead them to a very large contract. Now, let's be honest. How many NBA teams do you watch? I mean, here in Indiana, we got the Pacers. How many people watch that? How many people watch all the other teams? Yes, you're going to go with the Lakers, you're going to go with the Knicks, you're going to go with the Celtics. I mean, I used to watch the Celtics back in the old days when Larry Bird was playing because he was a great passer, and you love to see that. Magic Johnson, those kind of people. Kobe Bryant. But Caitlin Clark has come in, and people are going over, hey, I want to watch this. That's what's happening. So now you know she's outdoing the vast majority of NBA teams in viewership, and they only won, 18 games in 2 years? Something big is coming, folks. Keep your eyes out. Caitlin Clark could result in a big contract for the WNBA. And let's see how that works out. And frankly, let's see how they play this year when their league starts this summer. Just something to talk about, right? It's something to discuss. Basketball, the ladies instead of the men. That's what we're talking about because she is that big a draw. Just saying. Well, the 2024 election is over, and now we got to start thinking about, 2028, 2029, that particular era. Who's going to be running? Well, if you're thinking about the Republican side, J.D. Vance is probably the odds-on favorite to run for president, as vice president. That's what they normally do. We've seen that happen countless times. But the question is, who is going to run in the Democrat Party? Who are they going to select to try to run the country? Now, here's some thoughts to think about, and here's a few ideas. First off, would Kamala Harris be running again? Well, there's some people saying, yes, she could. She deserves a better chance this time, a more time to sell herself. But, she didn't really do a good job of selling herself this time around. but she had some difficulties. It was a 104-day campaign, so she couldn't do much in a short period of time. All right, fine. But she's still a woman. And is America ready for a woman president? Well, according to Bill Clinton, and he's their leader, or at least he was their leader, he said if there's going to be a woman president elected, it's going to be a conservative woman. And that certainly wouldn't be considered when you talk about Kamala Harris. So, what do the Democrats have left in their bag of tricks? It got me to thinking about that. All right, who could be a possible candidate in 2028? Which got me to think a little bit. All right, probably the most known because his name is out there everywhere, and you see him on TV, Gavin Newsom, governor of California. Now, he is Nancy Pelosi's nephew. He runs California, and it's about as far to the left as you can get without falling off the planet. But he has tried to put his name down there in Texas and California, or in Texas and Florida, and boy, he's a slickster. He wants to be president, and he thinks that would fit into his mold. Will he be the next one? Don't know. That would take the primaries and the Democrats to find out who's the one they want. But Gavin Newsom is one that obviously everybody thinks he would be the guy. Now, here's somebody, as far as a woman goes. I'm going to go right up to the state of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. She is the female governor in Michigan. Obviously, she's a strong candidate. She's been very strong in the state of Michigan. She's well liked, apparently. And so she might be one who's a possibility who could be out there talking, but would America still, once again, want a woman? But Gretchen Whitmer is somebody that certainly could be considered. Now, here's one that I think could be considered that should have been maybe the vice presidential candidate in 2024, but wasn't. Josh Shapiro. He's the governor of Pennsylvania. Kamala didn't pick him because, well, he outshined her, frankly. But would he be? He'd be great. He looks good. He comes across good. He's well-spoken. He can do the job pretty well. So would Josh Shapiro be the nominee for the Democrats in 2028? Certainly a possibility. Pete Buttigieg from South Bend, former mayor. He speaks well, but he's got some issues going on that may be a problem, but you don't know how America's going to be thinking 4 years down the road. So he stands there, younger guy, he's gay. I mean, okay, fine. If you want to have a gay president, well, that's America, how they vote. You decide what you want to do. But anyway, Pete Buttigieg, somebody to think about. J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois. He's a hotel magnate and very, 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 very left wing, if you will. And in Illinois, well, who knows? But Barack Obama came out of Illinois. Just keep that in mind. So he did win. But here's the one that I'm thinking about that could be the ace in the hole. What if, I'm just bringing this up, what if it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? You're going, what? Her AOC? Yeah. She's not dumb, but she is fashioning herself as being a young style, young ready, a woman who's a liberal. She might be the one that they would want to utilize. Ocasio-Cortez, President AOC, with her at the left, it depends on what the Democratic Party turns out to be. If they don't want to move to the center, want to move farther to the left, she could be their girl. Just telling you what's going on. Just something to think about, the candidate's possibility for the president in 2028. Just passing it along to you, and I hope you enjoy it.